My boss's girlfriend blocked my number. She screamed into the phone, "You're just an employee, so learn some professional boundaries. Are you really trying to seduce your boss after hours?" I didn't care about her drama because I had a multi-million-dollar contract sitting on my desk that expired tomorrow morning. When I tried calling back, I realized my number was blocked. My boss was completely unreachable, and no one at the office would pick up. Early the next morning, Ethan Miller showed up at my front door holding the corporate seal. I let out a long yawn and looked at him. "Sir, you're a grown man, so please respect my boundaries. It isn't exactly appropriate for you to show up at a female employee's house at this hour." Just the day before, while I was briefing Ethan on the final contract terms, the office door had creaked open. Ethan's girlfriend, Olivia, peeked her head inside, her expression freezing the moment she saw me. Her eyes were rimmed with red, and her voice trembled as if she were on the verge of tears. She asked timidly, "Ethan, am I interrupting your work?" My hand stopped mid-motion over the paperwork. Ethan looked incredibly awkward and tried to step toward her to comfort her. Olivia took a dramatic step back, looking victimized as tears began to stream down her face. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to doubt you. It is just that people say bosses always end up falling for their assistants, and I got scared." I remained silent and simply closed my laptop. Ethan's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment as he tried to calm her down. "Olivia, stop imagining things. We're strictly discussing business, so please don't overthink this." Olivia only began to sob harder at his words. "I know Lucas is incredibly talented, unlike me. I am useless and just get in your way. But does work really require a closed door?" Ethan frowned, glancing back and forth between the sobbing Olivia and me. He finally looked at me with an expression of pure desperation, clearly wanting to appease his girlfriend. "Lucas, would you mind giving us a moment? I need to straighten this out with her." I stood up and gathered my files. "That is fine," I replied. "However, William Harrison is waiting for the final draft. If we don't have this settled by 9 tomorrow morning, the penalty is 15% of the total project value." I paused before adding one more thought. "Mr. Miller, my contract doesn't include overtime for managing your personal relationships." I walked out and he shut the door behind me. I left Ethan standing there in stunned silence, while Olivia's sobbing grew even more theatrical. The atmosphere in the office was suffocating. Olivia had started as a receptionist 2 years ago and became Ethan's girlfriend last year. Since then, she had acted like she owned the entire company. She was hostile toward every woman who dared to breathe near Ethan, yet she had managed to gather a small group of loyal followers. Later that day, I saw her leaning against the front desk, gossiping with a few other employees. She spoke in a high, sugary voice, giggling while glancing in my direction. "I feel so bad for Lucas. She works so hard, but a girl really needs to look after herself. If Ethan finds out she is exhausted, he will probably blame me for not taking better care of his staff. My Ethan is just too kind for his own good. He feels like he owes his employees everything. I have told him so many times not to be too nice to his staff because people might get the wrong idea." I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me, filled with a mix of curiosity and petty excitement. I ignored her completely and focused entirely on the contract. An hour later, after proofreading every single clause, I hit send. The recipient was Ethan Miller. Just as the email left my outbox, I saw a pair of designer heels stop next to my desk. Olivia leaned over, casually spinning Ethan's phone in her hand. "You look exhausted, Lucas," she said with a fake smile. She smirked and waved the device in the air. "Ethan gave me his phone because he doesn't want me to worry. He is worried about desperate women trying to lure my man away." "Oh, don't take it personally, Lucas. I am sure you were only sending a professional email." She didn't shout, but she spoke loud enough for the entire floor to hear. I heard someone nearby stifle a laugh. A coworker whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "Wow, the actual girlfriend had to come down here to mark her territory. Some people really don't know their place." Exactly. You don't become a director at 28 just by working hard. God knows what kind of special skills she used to get there. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "Olivia, you just used the word husband." I looked her in the eye and asked, "Are the two of you actually married?" Olivia's face turned bright red as she struggled to find a comeback. She eventually just glared at me and stormed off, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. My coworkers suddenly found their work very interesting and looked away. I went back to my screen and watched the hours slip by. By the time I finished, the sun had set and the city was dark. The office was empty, but the door to Ethan's private suite remained shut. He still hadn't given me the seal I needed for the contract. At 8 o'clock that night, I tried calling his cell phone. "Hello." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Olivia, I need to speak with Ethan. There is an urgent contract that requires his immediate attention." I heard a soft, mocking laugh on the other end. "Oh, Lucas, still trying to get a man's attention this late at night? Ethan is already in bed." I gripped my phone until my knuckles turned white. "This contract is worth millions. The deadline is 9 tomorrow morning, and the company cannot afford the legal fees if we miss it. That is a shame, but work never ends and his health comes first. I wouldn't dream of waking him up. Besides, you are so talented. I'm sure you can figure out on your own." She hung up before I could say another word. I redialed immediately, but I was met with a generic automated message. The line was busy, and every subsequent attempt went straight to voicemail. She had blocked me on his phone. I tried sending him an iMessage instead. I told him that the Harrison contract was expiring and we couldn't afford the penalty. A red exclamation mark appeared instantly next to my text. I had been removed from his contacts entirely. I picked up my office landline and started calling the other executives. The vice president declined my call after only 2 rings. A text message popped up on my screen a moment later. It said that it wasn't that he didn't want to help, but that everyone knew the situation with Olivia and it wasn't appropriate for him to get involved. The CFO actually picked up, though he sounded hesitant. He told me to stay calm and explained that Olivia was currently throwing a tantrum. He even suggested that no contract was more important than the boss's domestic peace. "Sir," I interrupted, "after 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we won't be talking about his girlfriend. We will be talking about how to pay a $10 million penalty." Silence followed before he gave a nervous laugh and said he would see what he could do. I never heard back from him. Desperate, I opened the company's internal group chat and sent an emergency blast. I notified everyone that the Harrison project was at risk and that I needed someone to help me get in touch with Ethan before the deadline. The group chat stayed silent for a few beats. Then Ethan's avatar appeared, but the message was clearly written by Olivia. She tagged me and said she knew I meant well, but Ethan was sick and needed rest, and that I was just causing unnecessary panic. She continued by questioning if the contract was even real, claiming Ethan had never mentioned it. She told me to be careful about being scammed and wondered aloud how I would ever take responsibility for such a massive loss if I were wrong. Her words were calculated to undermine my authority. Before I could even type a response, a notification appeared saying I had been removed from the group chat. I actually started laughing from the sheer absurdity of it. I had exhausted every resource and made every possible call. There was nothing left for me to do. I shut down my computer, grabbed my things, and caught a cab home where I spent the entire night wide awake. I sat on my sofa as the dawn turned the sky from black to a dull gray. Exhaustion washed over me in waves, but I couldn't relax. I felt sick knowing what was about to happen to the company. Ethan had been the one to give me my first real chance. I grew up in a small town with no connections and struggled to find work after graduating from mediocre college. Every other firm had slammed the door in my face. Ethan was the only person who saw my potential. He trusted me and helped me climb the corporate ladder. He had his flaws and could be indecisive, but overall, he'd been a decent mentor. A sudden, frantic pounding at my front door broke the silence. I dragged myself out of my chair and opened it to find Ethan and Olivia standing there. It looked like they had been through a war zone. Ethan was pale, and his hair was a mess. He was clutching the corporate seal so hard his knuckles were white. "Lucas, the contract. Tell me we still have time. I will sign it right now." He tried to push past me into my apartment. Olivia was hovering behind him, refusing to meet my eyes. The arrogant woman from last night was nowhere to be seen. I looked at the two of them and couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. I blocked the entrance and looked Ethan in the eye. "Sir, I think you need to learn about boundaries. Showing up at a single woman's apartment at dawn with your girlfriend is highly inappropriate. Ethan tried to offer a pathetic smile. My phone died, I swear. It wouldn't turn on all night, so I didn't see any of your messages. Olivia stayed behind him, clutching his sleeve like a frightened child. Please don't be mad at him, Lucas. It was all my fault. I was just worried about him being taken advantage of because he works so hard. I'm just so stupid. I didn't say anything to her and just handed the paperwork to Ethan. He grabbed the seal and started stamping pages as fast as his shaking hands would allow. Olivia tried to play nice, saying she hoped I wasn't too upset. She told me that while I was smart and capable, she was just a simple girl who didn't understand business. Seeing Ethan sacrifice everything for this firm breaks my heart. I just wanted to help him out. I had no idea it would cause all this trouble. I looked at her wide, innocent eyes and felt disgusted. So your way of showing you care is to jeopardize a $10 million contract? I asked softly. That is some very expensive affection, Olivia. Her face went pale. We managed to submit the contract, but it was 30 minutes past the deadline. Our contact at Harrison Enterprises was furious and told us that William Harrison was livid. Ethan looked like he was about to faint when he hung up the phone. He knew better than anyone that I was the one who had secured this deal against every other major firm in the city. A few hours later, he came back to my place alone. This time, he didn't look like a boss. He looked like a beggar. Lucas, I know how much work you put into this. Olivia had good intentions. She just made a mistake. Do you think you could talk to Harrison and explain what happened? I stared at him in disbelief. What exactly am I supposed to say? Should I tell him your girlfriend's jealousy almost bankrupt the company? Or should I tell him that you are the kind of leader who lets his personal life destroy his business? He had no answer for that. Seeing him so broken made me sigh. I eventually gave in and agreed to help on one condition. I told him he had a guarantee that Olivia would never be allowed to interfere with company business again. Before he could answer, Olivia burst into the room. She begged Ethan not to let me bully him. She said she knew I was so talented that I would obviously help. Then she started crying again about how her only crime was loving him too much. Ethan, Mr. Harrison trusts Lucas so much that I'm sure he won't be too hard on her. She kept shooting me these sideways glances. I ignored her and waited for Ethan to speak. He looked at me with a pained expression and suggested that since William Harrison liked me so much, maybe I should just take the blame for the delay. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sir, my job description doesn't include being the scapegoat for your girlfriend's incompetence. I looked past him at Olivia, whose face was pale with rage. Ethan stood there, unable to find the words to argue. He finally spoke through gritted teeth, reminding me that he was the one who promoted me from an intern. He told me I shouldn't forget where I came from. That comment made my blood run cold. Fine. I told him this would be the last time I bailed him out. When I walked into the conference room at Harrison Enterprises later that day, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. I didn't offer any excuses for the delay. Instead, I handed over a revised agreement that moved the deadline up by a week. I even included a performance bond to show we were serious. William Harrison was a man in his late 30s with eyes that seemed to see through everything. He stared at me for a long time before finally saying this was my one and only warning. I finally let out the breath I had been holding. As I was leaving, he stopped me. He told me that he was giving the second chance to me because of my professionalism, not to the agency. I gave him a small nod and walked out. Olivia was surprisingly quiet for the next week, keeping her desk and staying out of my way. Ethan tried to make things right by giving me a massive bonus for saving the Harrison account. Everything was fine until the Monday morning meeting. I was right in the middle of presenting a new strategy to a major client when Olivia burst into the room. She walked in with a tray of drinks, acting like she was doing everyone a favor. She said she brought coffee for everyone because we looked tired and even made a point to thank me for my hard work. The clients just stared at her in confusion. I put down my remote and sat down in silence. Ethan gave the clients a nervous smile and suggested we take a coffee break before continuing with my marketing strategy. The clients didn't say a word. They just exchanged looks. Ethan was frantically gesturing for me to say something, but I just looked down at my notes. Olivia sidled up to him and leaned in close. I was listening at the door, and Lucas is just amazing, she chirped. She is so well-spoken. No wonder she was able to charm someone as important as William Harrison. I honestly have no idea how she pulled it off. She turned her gaze to Ethan, looking concerned. But you really shouldn't let her handle everything. She is great, but you're the boss. You should be the one making the final calls. Don't you all agree? I slowly spun my pen on the table and watched her. The room was silent, but everyone knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to make Ethan feel threatened by my success. Ethan cleared his throat, looking mortified. I just smiled and pulled up the company policy on the projector for everyone to see. I read aloud the rules stating that only project members were permitted in core strategy meetings. The blue light from the projector illuminated Olivia's shocked face. I asked her if she would like me to also read aloud the job description for a receptionist. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear. He finally found his voice and told Olivia to leave. The meeting was a disaster after that. When the clients left, they didn't even bother with the usual polite goodbyes. Ethan was fuming. The second the door closed, he slammed his folder onto the table and asked me if I was satisfied. I didn't say anything and just started packing my laptop. You humiliated her in front of our biggest clients, which makes me look like a fool. Do you have any idea how to be a team player? I looked at him and told him that my job was to protect the company's interests, not his girlfriend's ego. I shut my laptop and met his gaze. He couldn't think of a comeback and just stormed out of the room. 30 minutes later, an email from the client landed in my inbox. Ethan forwarded it to me immediately. The client was pulling back, stating they had serious concerns about our agency's lack of internal professionalism and needed to reconsider our partnership. A few days later, it was time for my quarterly review. Ethan slid my evaluation across the desk and pointed to the C- he had given me. I stared at him and waited for an explanation. He wouldn't look me in the eye as he told me that while my work was technically perfect, I was becoming too much of a distraction for the company. He said the firm needed reliable team players, not people who cause constant friction. I just nodded, took the paper, and told him I understood exactly what he was saying. I went back to my desk and folded the evaluation until it was tiny, then shoved it into the back of my drawer. I sat down and began to quietly organize all my personal files. Starting that day, I was the first person out the door. The second the clock hit 5, I was gone. Whenever someone tried to hand me something late in the day, I just told them I was off the clock. By 9 that night, the group chat was in a state of total chaos. Ethan called me a dozen times, but I just put my phone on silent and left in the other room. Ethan was waiting at my desk the next morning, looking furious. He demanded to know why I hadn't answered his calls when there was a crisis with one of our projects. I calmly logged into my computer and reminded him that 9 o'clock was well after business hours. He looked at me like I had lost my mind and shouted that I never used to care about the time. You gave me a C-, I said, looking him dead in the eye. That tells me my previous way of working was wrong. I am simply adjusting my behavior to meet your expectations. He stood there gasping for air, unable to find an argument. I know you're just upset, he said, finally trying to play nice. He started making empty promises about how everyone respected my talent and that I was guaranteed to be Employee of the Month if I just went back to normal. I just nodded and told him I understood. He left feeling like he had won, but the second he was gone, I went back to my screen. I wasn't working on his projects. I opened an encrypted folder containing my updated resume and a list of recruiters. I picked the top contact on my list and sent a short email stating that I was looking for new opportunities. My phone rang almost immediately after I hit send. I tried to put in a request for time off through the system, but it was instantly denied. I walked straight into Ethan's office to find out why. His door was cracked open, and he waved me in without looking up from his screen. He sounded annoyed as he asked me what I wanted. I told him directly that my vacation request had been denied. He leaned back and crossed his arms, telling me that with the current workload, taking time off was out of the question. I reminded him that I was legally entitled to my vacation days. He groaned and rubbed his temples, repeating that I used to be so much more flexible. He asked if I would take responsibility if the project failed while I was gone. I told him I expected him to follow the law and pointed out that I hadn't taken a single day off in 16 months. His face turned a deep shade of crimson as he struggled to find an answer. He sputtered for a few seconds, but couldn't form a sentence. I didn't wait for him to finish and just walked out. He screamed after me that I would regret this. When I got back to my desk, my phone was vibrating so much it was nearly sliding off the table. I had dozens of notifications telling me I had been removed from every single internal project and company group chat. It was a systematic purge of my access. I walked back into his office and held up my phone. He didn't even look up. He had clearly been expecting me. I asked him to explain exactly what was going on. "You are fired, Lucas," he said with a look of pure spite. I didn't flinch. I just told him that was fine and reminded him that per my contract, I was owed a full severance package. He laughed and said I wasn't getting a dime because I was being fired for cause due to gross misconduct. I calmly reminded him that my vacation request was documented in the system and protected by law. He stood up and pointed a finger inches from my face, shouting that I had ruined the company and didn't deserve any legal protection. I decided I was done talking and went back to my desk. I spent the next hour downloading every scrap of evidence I had. I saved every overtime log, every project email, and every single text message from Ethan into an encrypted cloud drive. My job hunt over the next week was a nightmare. I sent out dozens of resumes and got nothing but silence. The few interviews I did land were all canceled at the last minute with vague excuses about the positions being filled. Even the recruiter who had reached out to me called to cancel our meeting. When I asked why, he went silent for a long time before finally sending me a text. He told me there were rumors circulating that I was untrustworthy and was trying to sell company secrets to the highest bidder. The line went dead, and I felt like the world was closing in on me. Ethan was clearly trying to destroy my reputation so I could never work in this industry again. Just as I was starting to lose hope, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown local number. I answered with a raspy voice. After a moment of silence, a deep, commanding voice spoke. It was William Harrison. I sat up straight, wondering if I was hallucinating. I couldn't even find my voice to reply. He told me he had heard what happened in my old firm. I closed my eyes, expecting him to tell me the contract was canceled. Instead, he told me that he trusted his own judgment more than rumors. My eyes snapped open. He said his strategic development team needed someone with my level of grit and expertise. His voice was steady and full of confidence as he asked if I would be interested in a formal interview. I looked out at the dark city, feeling alone just moments ago, but now everything had changed. This wasn't a pity offer, it was real professional validation. I gripped the phone so hard my hand started to ache. I fought to keep my voice from shaking when I gave him my answer. It was just one word, but it took everything I had to say it. William hired me as the Senior Director of Strategic Development, reporting directly to him. On my very first day, he handed me my first major assignment, which was to conduct a full audit of our relationship with Miller Associates. I knew exactly what he was doing. He was handing me the weapon to finish what Ethan started. Word of my new position traveled through the industry like wildfire. The day I returned to my old office as the client was unforgettable. Ethan and his entire leadership team were waiting for me at the entrance. Olivia was there too, still looking as arrogant as ever. Ethan practically ran toward me, bowing slightly in a show of newfound respect. He called me Director Lucas and welcomed me back with a wide smile, reaching out for a handshake. I ignored his hand and let my gaze linger on Olivia's face for a moment before looking away. I told him to skip the pleasantries and that I was only there on official business. When we entered the conference room, I walked straight to the head of the table and sat down. The staff from the agency sat along the sides, looking incredibly stiff and nervous. Ethan spent the whole time trying to suck up to me, glancing in my direction every time a new slide appeared on the screen. He was desperately searching my face for any sign of mercy. Halfway through the meeting, the door opened and Olivia walked in carrying a tray of drinks. She announced that she had made coffee for everyone. I didn't even look at the cup she placed in front of me. Instead, I looked at Ethan and asked why an unauthorized person was being allowed to disrupt a high-level strategy meeting for Harrison Enterprises. Ethan's fake smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of sheer panic. He whirled around and screamed at Olivia to get out, demanding to know who gave her permission to enter the room. Olivia looked like she was about to burst into tears as she shot me one last hateful look and fled the room. My final audit report was blunt. It stated that the agency was plagued by mismanagement and high turnover, and I officially recommended that we terminate our partnership. William's response to my report was a simple 3-word email. He just said, "Understood." Later that evening, my phone started ringing with a call from Ethan. He invited me to a private club for dinner, hoping to talk things over. It was just the two of us in a secluded room. All his confidence was gone. He was practically bowing as he poured me tea. He begged me to give the agency one more chance for the sake of our history, reminding me that the firm was his life's work. I sipped my tea in silence, watching his desperate face through the rising steam. He leaned in across the table, telling me he would give me anything I wanted if I would just help him. He offered me a vice presidency at his firm or promised to do whatever I needed behind the scenes at Harrison Enterprises. The door suddenly slammed open and Olivia charged in, her eyes wild with rage. She pointed a finger at me and screamed, calling me a shameless woman and accusing me of trying to steal her man even after I had left the firm. Ethan looked like he had seen a ghost. I slowly set my teacup back on the table and looked him in the eye. I told him that an old saying suggests a man should fix his own house before he tries to conquer the world. I took a moment to look at the sobbing Olivia before turning back to him. I suggested that he needed to get his personal life in order before he could even dream of being a successful businessman. Every bit of color drained from his face as he stood there in shock. As I walked toward the door, I turned back and reminded him that he still owed me my full severance package. I hadn't even made it to the exit of the club before my phone buzzed with a bank notification. It was a substantial amount of money. He had sent me every cent of the severance pay he owed me. He was certainly fast when he was terrified. I gave a satisfied smile, glad that I wouldn't have to waste months in court. When I got back to the office, I handed the final audit report to William. He replied almost instantly with a single word. He just said accurate. I knew what that meant. Miller Associates was officially finished as far as Harrison Enterprises was concerned. The next few days were quiet as the formal termination letter was delivered. Word also got out to other major players in the industry that we were no longer doing business with Ethan, which acted as a silent warning to everyone else. Ethan's credit lines were cut almost immediately. His calls came in a relentless flood. I let him scream and shout into the void for a while before I finally decided to answer. "Lucas, you did this. You were trying to destroy me." His voice was raw and sounded like a wounded animal. I sat there in silence and let him rage. When he finally stopped to catch his breath, I spoke softly. I told him that I wasn't the one who destroyed him. There was a sudden, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I told him his downfall was caused by his own weakness and Olivia's toxic jealousy. I could hear him struggling to breathe through the phone. I reminded him of what I said in my apartment that morning. Her affection really did come with a high price tag. I hung up and permanently blocked his number. I thought the drama was finally over, but a new wave of vicious rumors began to circulate in the industry. It started in our own break room. I had gone in to grab a coffee when the talking stopped. I caught snippets of my name being used alongside words like affair and spy. As soon as they saw me, my coworkers went completely silent and looked away. Later that afternoon, an intern I was friendly with walked up to my desk, looking hesitant. She showed me her phone and asked if I'd seen the hit piece someone had written about me. It was a viral post on an industry gossip blog. The headline was disgusting, questioning whether my promotion was based on my talent or what I was doing in the bedroom. There were photos of me and William from a recent gala. One shot was angled to make it look like his arm was around me when he was actually just handing me a glass. Another was a blurry photo of us talking in the parking garage. The photo from the garage made it look like I was leaning in to kiss him. But the worst part was a screenshot of the bank transfer from Ethan. The amount and the timing were perfectly clear. The caption claimed I was taking bribes from both sides and playing them against each other. It was a well-constructed pack of lies designed to ruin me. The article alleged that I had been William's mistress for years and was spying on Ethan from the inside before sabotaging his firm for a payout. I handed the phone back to the intern and thanked her. She looked worried and told me the company group chats were blowing up. I told her I understood. The tactics were so familiar that I knew exactly who was behind it. It had to be Olivia. She was trying to burn my entire career to the ground. I wasn't going to let that happen. I stood up and walked straight to William's office. I could feel everyone watching me as I walked through the floor. Their whispers felt like needles against my skin. I didn't stop until I reached William's door and knocked. He looked up with a calm expression. I held out my phone with the article pulled up. He didn't even take the device. He just glanced at the headline and asked if it was interfering with our work. I told him the work was fine, but the rumors were damaging the company's reputation. He leaned forward and offered to let the legal team handle it. I told him I would take care of it myself. He studied me for a long moment as if measuring my resolve. Eventually, he gave me 3 days to resolve the situation. There was no pity in his voice, only expectations. That was just his way. I immediately called a friend of mine who was an expert in cybersecurity. I sent him the links and the IDs of the accounts spreading the rumors and told him to find the source. 2 hours later, he called me back with the location. The IP addresses were all coming from a single location. It was a high-end spa in the suburbs. It was Olivia's favorite spot. Then my phone buzzed again. He sent me an iMessage with a photo he had just uncovered. The photos were crystal clear. They showed Olivia in a dimly lit club, draped over a middle-aged man and laughing as she fed him a drink. The man had his hand all over her. My friend told me she was already hunting for a new benefactor and had set her sights on a wealthy developer named Mr. Miller. Apparently, his wife was notoriously vengeful and was already looking for his latest mistress. I stared at her face in those photos and felt a wave of disgust. She really was willing to do anything to stay on top. I saved the files to my phone. I pulled up my bank records and took a screenshot of the severance payment Ethan had sent me. I made sure to include the corresponding clauses from my employment contract. I sent a quick message to a former coworker who was still at the agency. Within 5 minutes, I had several clips of security footage in my inbox. The footage showed Olivia having a complete meltdown in the office. She was screaming and throwing files at a manager just because he hadn't addressed her with the respect she thought she deserved. I also had screenshots of her using Ethan's account to harass me in the group chats. I compiled everything into a single, comprehensive timeline, including the photos of her with her new sugar daddy. I posted the entire thing to all my social media accounts with a simple caption telling people to judge the truth for themselves. The reaction was almost instantaneous. Within 3 hours, the entire narrative had flipped. The original blog post about me was taken down, and a new article was posted in its place. The new headline called her out as the true villain of the industry. It laid out all my evidence and showed everyone exactly who they had been listening to. The comments were brutal. People were calling her a hypocrite and a gold digger, pointedly noting that she was cheating on Ethan while trying to ruin my life. Everyone who had been attacking me was now offering their sympathies. Every single insult that had been hurled my way was now being aimed directly at Olivia with twice the intensity. Shortly after I posted to Twitter, the official Harrison Enterprises account issued a formal statement. They didn't hold back. The company officially identified me as an executive and categorized the rumors as a coordinated malicious attack against Harrison Enterprises itself. They made it clear that attacking me was the same as attacking the firm. They ended the post with a scan of a formal legal filing. Someone in the comments pointed out that the law firm we hired had a 100% success rate in defamation cases. The sheer power of the response was overwhelming. I was stunned that William had moved so quickly. He had given me 3 days, but he had ended it in hours. It had been less than 3 hours since I made my post, and he had already cleared my name without saying a word to me. All the gossip accounts that had been sharing the rumors were now deleting their posts in a panic. My phone, which had been vibrating nonstop, finally went quiet. This wasn't just a correction of the facts. It was a message to the entire industry that I was under the protection of Harrison Enterprises. He had built a wall of power around me that no rumor could ever break. As I looked out at the city, I realized for the first time just how much power William Harrison truly wielded beneath his calm exterior. I turned off my phone and sat in the quiet room. William hadn't just helped me, he had given me an entire army. I was lost in thought when another message from my former co-worker popped up. The text told me there was more news and included a link to a short video. It showed Olivia walking out of a high-end restaurant on Mr. Miller's arm, looking like she had already won her next prize. Suddenly, a woman in a designer suit appeared with several large men. She grabbed Olivia by the hair and started slapping her across the face with incredible force. Olivia's hair was a mess, and her expensive dress was torn as she collapsed on the sidewalk, screaming for help. Her new boyfriend was cowering against the wall, too terrified to even look in her direction. The men dragged Olivia into a black SUV and sped off. The video cut to black as the door slammed shut. 30 minutes later, my contact sent a voice message, his voice shaking. He told me that the woman in the video was indeed Mr. Miller's wife, and that she was famous for her temper. He said Olivia had been taken to a hospital after the attack. He said she was in terrible shape, both physically and mentally. The news was haunting, and I felt a chill run through my body as I listened to the details of her injuries. Olivia had used her body as her only tool for success, and now she had lost everything. It was a brutal, tragic end, but she had played a dangerous game and finally lost. I never heard Olivia's name again after that. Within a month, Miller Associates officially filed for bankruptcy and began liquidating assets. Ethan was left with nothing but debt and a ruined reputation. His house and cars were all seized and sold off. A few months later, my old co-worker sent me one last photo. The text asked me to guess who was in the picture. It showed a man in a dirty t-shirt sitting on a curb and smoking a cigarette in front of a dilapidated warehouse. The man was unrecognizable, gaunt and filthy. It was Ethan Miller. My friend said he was now running a tiny stall on the market, barely making enough to eat by writing basic business proposals for local vendors. He had apparently spent months searching for Olivia, and after he finally found her and saw what had become of her, he lost his mind. I looked at the photo one last time, and then believed it. Ethan was a man who let the women in his life dictate his success and failure. Now, his story was finally over. A year later, following a successful major development project, I was named Vice President of Harrison Enterprises. William announced my promotion with a simple internal memo to the executive team. There were no parties or speeches, which was exactly how he and I preferred it. My new office was on the top floor, right next to his. One afternoon, my desk phone rang. It was William telling me we had a meeting in 20 minutes. I looked out over the sprawling city, watching the lights move like a living room. I was no longer the desperate girl from a small town trying to earn a place. I was the one who made the rules. I gave a simple confirmation and hung up. Exactly 20 minutes later, I walked across the hall and into the conference room to start the day. This story is not about revenge. It is about what happened when you finally stopped letting other people's insecurities define you. Lucas spent years being loyal, hardworking, and professional, only to be sabotaged by a boss who was too weak to stand up to his consequences. Olivia used jealousy as a weapon, and Ethan used silence as a shield. Neither of them expected Lucas to fight back, but she didn't fight with rage or gossip. She fought with evidence, contracts, and the quiet dignity of someone who knew she had done nothing wrong. When they tried to destroy her reputation, she simply told the truth and let the weight of their own lies crush them. The lesson here is harsh but clear. You cannot build a career on talent alone if the people above you are spineless. And you cannot let fear of conflict keep you from protecting what you have earned. Ethan lost everything not because Lucas was ruthless, but because he refused to be ignored. Olivia destroyed herself, not because she was evil, but because she thought manipulation was a strategy. In the end, the best revenge is not cruelty. It is walking away, building something better, and letting the people do not need to destroy anyone to win. You just need to stop letting them destroy you.